So, hello and welcome to the David 67 channel live stream to cover the 25-26 UEFA Europa League live draw. Just wait for a few people, hopefully, to attend, and then we can actually get started. So the live draw program starts in about 5 minutes' time. Celtic will be in pot 2. So Celtic are in pot 2 along with Fenerbahce, Braga, where of course our ex-player Gustav Lagerbielke now is, Red Star Belgrade, a team like Celtic who were knocked out by a much smaller team in the final qualifying round. They got knocked out by the Cypriot champions Paphos. We've also got Lyon of France, who sound like a strong team, PAOK of Greece, another strong team potentially. Victoria Pleasant, not such a strong team, a team I think Rangers beat just a few weeks ago. Ferencváros, another team like Celtic who were seeded through to the final qualifying round but got knocked out by a smaller team. Celtic ourselves, Maccabi Tel Aviv of Israel. So quite a number of teams in pot 2 who look that bit stronger, and a few teams who look that wee bit weaker, and that's certainly pretty much the case in all of the different pots. This, as far as I know, is going to be the actual pots for the draw when it starts in 5 minutes' time or so. So in pot 1, we've got Roma, who obviously really strong, Porto really strong, Rangers, who aren't so strong, but we can't draw them because you can't draw another team from the same country as yourselves. We've got Feyenoord, who we beat, of course, a couple of years ago, 2-1 in the Champions League in the old-fashioned version. That winning goal was scored, of course, by Gustav Lagerbielke, who's now been transferred off to Braga in Portugal. Lille of France, Dinamo Zagreb, another team like us, a strong team, but knocked out in the qualifying for Champions League. We've got Real Betis, potentially strong team from Spain. Aston Villa, who of course beat us 4-2 at Villa Park, Birmingham last season. Red Bull Salzburg, a team who were much stronger, who seem to be a wee bit on the ebb in Austrian football. We've gone through pot 2 already. That's where Celtic are. Fenerbahce, who also had a very disappointing Champions League qualifying campaign. So Braga, Red Star Belgrade, Lyon, PAOK, Victoria Pleasant, Ferencváros, Celtic, and Maccabi Tel Aviv. Pot 3, some stronger teams and some weaker-looking teams there. Young Boys Bern, of course, we beat them last season. Basel of Switzerland, about the same level as Young Boys Bern. Midtjylland of Denmark, a team we've had a bad experience with before, but if Celtic played to their best, I think Celtic could certainly beat Midtjylland. Freiburg of Germany, so one of the better German teams, but not a top German team like Red Bull Leipzig, who of course beat last year at Celtic Park. Ludogorets of Bulgaria. Had to double check which country Ludogorets come from, but again, if Celtic were to draw Ludogorets as one of their 2 from pot 3, I think we'd be quite happy. Notts Forest or Nottingham Forest, rumoured Nottingham Forest are going to be sacking their manager. The top 2 favourites for the job at Nottingham Forest, if they do sack their manager, are the current Celtic manager, Brendan Rodgers, who has promised he's not going to leave Celtic and during this season, but then he said that the first time around in season 3, Ange Postecoglou, the other person rumoured to be in line for the Notts Forest job if they do sack their manager. Sturm Graz of Austria, FCSB, also known as Steaua Bucharest, who of course knocked out Aberdeen yesterday evening, and Nice of France. Finally, pot 4, which actually looks a really strong pot. Bologna from Italy, Celta Vigo from Spain, Stuttgart from Germany, Panathinaikos from Greece, Malmo from Sweden, Utrecht from Holland, Go Ahead Eagles, who of course did have the player Jacob Broom that we've been supposedly bidding for, but that now appears to have fallen by the wayside. I think Go Ahead Eagles have decided to keep their squad as strong as it can be. Genk of Belgium, they got knocked out. They went through rather by beating Luis Palma's team, like Poznan last night. One of Genk's star players, of course, is another player that Brendan Rodgers kicked out. Zhu Hen. Brendan Rodgers didn't rate him at all, sold him off to Genk. He's been a big success in Belgian football, and wouldn't be terribly surprising if Genk sold him by the end of the transfer window. Quite a number of teams from the Dutch league are looking to sign to be one of their main strikers. And the final team in pot 4, Brann of Norway. Just wanted to, before the draw actually gets started, just to cover one wee thing. There was a comment in the comment section from Anthony Flynn regarding Celtic's potential new striker. So the news this morning is Adam Ida is away down to Swansea. He's got a medical down in Swansea with the intention of being transferred from Celtic to Swansea. Some quotes are saying 7 million, some quotes are saying 6 million. It could be one of these ones, which is 6 million plus various different additional packages. Of course, we're making a couple of £1 million loss on Adam Ida, who was signed for 9 million. I thought his last season was pretty good. I thought his last season was pretty good. Scored 20 goals, coming mostly off the bench, did make some starts. In essence, first half of the season, he was second choice to Kyogo, who did score some goals, but not nearly as many as he had at his best. And he scored 12 goals in half a season for Celtic. And of course, second half of the season, Dyson Maeda was our main first choice striker. So in essence, Ida was the backup striker and scored 20 goals, which is pretty decent. However, has had a terrible start to the season, no confidence, and so looks like Rodgers has cut his losses and hopes he's going to get a better striker in place. Now, the stories are that Celtic are very committed to signing this player, Kasper Dolberg of Anderlecht, 27-year-old Danish international, rather. 6 foot tall, so he plays a centre forward stroke striker position. 55 caps for Denmark, 22 goals, which is really pretty impressive. 1 goal every 2.5 international matches. His current valuation is 11 million, and apparently about a month ago, Celtic made inquiries and were told the asking price was going to be 10 million. However, that's dropped, they think, to now 7 or more likely 8 million for him, which sounds pretty decent for a player with that amount of international experience. He's got 2 years left in his contract, supposedly gets £34,000 a week, so he would fit in at the top level of Celtic's wage budget. In the past, played for Sevilla, Ajax, Nice, Hoffenheim, Silkeborg, and now playing for Anderlecht, so obviously played in all-round Europe, played at the highest levels. He's scored 5 goals already this season in the Belgian League in 8 games. Last season, 24 goals in 45 games in the Belgian League and in Europe. So again, a goal every 2 games, very impressive. And for Anderlecht, 95 games, 44 goals, 7 assists. And in his whole career, 346 games, 123 goals, and 32 assists. So it does look like a player with tons of ability, scores lots of goals, and also has that facility at 6'2" to be a threat aerially in the box, and also could potentially be a bit of a target man if Celtic were going to be using players like Shin Yamada, Johnny Kenny, Callum Osmond, Benjamin Negrin as a kind of inside forward or a second striker type position. So, quite wrong. I have less problems about playing Johnny Kenny now as a Celtic striker. Wasn't massively convinced by his form and performances at the end of last season. Didn't look that brilliant in pre-season, but he's had a couple of good sub appearances. Did score a really impressive goal last weekend. Very good run, very good finish. I think Johnny Kenny could turn into a very good Celtic striker. I think Shin Yamada could also turn into a very good Celtic striker. And I think in the fullness of time, Callum Osmond is going to turn into a very good Celtic striker. The question is going to be whether players like Osmond and Kenny get enough match experience to really come through. I would guess if Celtic did sign Kasper Dolberg to be our number one striker, Shin Yamada would be the designated number two backup alongside Johnny Kenny, with Callum Osmond probably coming in, covering for injuries and suspensions and form loss, etc. So up until a week or so ago, I did have my doubts regarding Johnny Kenny, but it does look like maybe Adam Ida has lost his place in the pecking order, and Johnny Kenny's jumped into one of being the top, well, now two strikers at Celtic, but I am now 100% certain Celtic will push the boat out to get another striker in, and haven't done a tremendous amount of research of Kasper Dolberg, because it only came up last night as being on the radar, but it does look like Celtic are looking to buy him in the fullness of time. So it does look like they're starting to do all the preamble about the draw for the Champions League. Slip of the tongue there, for the UEFA Europa League. So each team gets 2 from pot 1, 2 from pot 2, 2 from pot 3, 2 from pot 4, 4 home games, 4 away games, all games played on Thursdays. We won't know actually what order of fixtures we get until a wee bit later on today or tomorrow. Apparently what happens is someone presses a button and then the draw is done automatically, but we don't see the draw being done automatically. As far as I can read from all the introductions and preamble, there is no balls coming out of bowls. There is no opening of balls to get bits of paper out. There is no computer screens showing teams going up one by one as they're drawn. It's all done with one press of the button, and then the computer works out who gets who, which 2 from pot 1, which 2 from pot 2, which 2 from pot 3, which 2 from pot 4. Can't get another team from your own country at this stage, and as far as I can remember, can't get more than 2 from one country in your pool of 8 opponents. I'm not sure that having a draw that's just done automatically behind the scenes with one press of the button by the computer is very good for transparency. For me, it smacks a little bit of the accusations that UEFA you could be fixing the draw to get the draw that you want. I do know when they're doing the practice and run through versions of these, they do it 2 or 3 times just to make sure everything's working. And there are also different ways of getting the same. You can do a mock draw off using internet sites as well. However, we will trust UEFA that they're going to be telling the truth and that the draw is all 100% kosher. And that when the computer button gets pressed, the sides will be randomly assigned to whichever group it is. So certainly looking at pot 1, teams that Celtic might want to get, maybe Red Bull Salzburg, maybe Dynamo Zagreb, maybe Feyenoord. We beat Feyenoord last time around. If only we could have drawn Rangers as one of our opponents, I think we would have been happy enough with that, because I think they are by far the weakest side alongside Dynamo Zagreb from that top pot 1. Pot 2, Fenerbahce, who I think sacked their manager last night because of failing to get into the Champions League. Braga wouldn't be too bad a team to get. Red Star Belgrade, about the same level, I think, as Celtic in general terms. Similarly, PAOK. I think Celtic would look quite confidently at beating Victoria Pleasant, Ferencváros and Maccabi Tel Aviv. That's assuming that Celtic actually play at the level that they can do, the level that they played for most of last season's Champions League. It does appear, for one reason or another, Celtic's form has dipped a wee bit over the course of 2025. I think there's been a wee bit of unsettling behind the scenes. I think Nicholas Kuhn reportedly was agitating for a move away from the club all of the second half of last season. I think there was quite a bit of a upheaval at the club with Kyogo leaving, and then difficulties getting him replaced with a new striker. In the end, it actually worked out quite fine with a mixture of Dyson Maida and Adam Ida. Saw us through to a successful, comfortable win of the title. Saw us through to cup final, which unfortunately we did lose. Pot 3, Young Boys Bern. We beat them last season. I'm sure we could do it again. Ludogorets, I think we'd be happy to play them. Aberdeen drew 2-2 with Steaua Bucharest, so I think Celtic would be quite confident to beat them. Similarly, Sturm Graz, I think another team Celtic wouldn't mind too much at all. But pot 4, in essence, these are the ones with the lowest current UEFA coefficients. Some really pretty strong teams in that lot. So I've read one or two wee articles saying what the best. So there are balls. Anyway, I take it all back. There do appear to be balls. The thing I read about this in advance was that there wasn't going to be any balls getting opened up, but there are balls that are going to get opened up. So we'll see who you all get, or is this a magician? Anyway. So I don't know what everybody feels themselves about who we want to get, who we want to avoid. I think in essence, no matter who Celtic get, they have to play at their best. Celtic at their best beat some good, powerful teams last year. Red Bull Leipzig, we thumped Slovan Bratislava. We went away to Atalanta, a really powerful Italian team, did very well over there. So I think Celtic at their best can take on most teams in Europe. We came within a few seconds of taking Bayern Munich to extra time. After that, 1-0 win until 4 minutes into added time, when we conceded, unfortunately, equaliser to knock us out. I think Celtic have got the players at the club to do very well, both domestically and in Europe. Just unfortunately, in the two games against Kairat Almaty, the players didn't play anywhere near their best. I don't think Rodgers and his coaching staff are a terribly good two legs either. I thought Rodgers' selections were rather boring and predictable. And all the substitutions were just replacing a light player with another light player. We never went to a 3-5-2. We never went to two at the back, pushing the fullbacks forward. We never added another couple of strikers behind the main striker. We never really got Benjamin Nygren playing in a sort of floating attacking midfield role. It looked like we started in a 4-3-3, we finished in a 4-3-3, we played a 4-3-3 the whole way through. Kira Almaty, who looked 100 times more fired up than we were. One of the people in the comment section of the video that I did a couple of days ago after the game was talking about the fact that you could see at 90 minutes and 105 minutes, 120 minutes, just how fired up the Kira Almaty players were, and how flat and quiet and timid and scared the Celtic players looked. So I would agree with some of that comments. I think Celtic have to play at or near their best to beat people. I do think that Brendan Rodgers is not a very imaginative, creative manager. I've got a feeling that had our manager a few days ago been Ange Postecoglou, Martin O'Neill, Gordon Strachan, Jock Stein, many other managers, that they would have found another 2 or 3 ways of taking on Kira Almaty, particularly as Kira Almaty played exactly in the same in the first leg and the second leg. Didn't look like Rodgers developed anything to counteract Kira Almaty's tactics. They use very similar tactics to beat teams higher seeded than them previously. They beat Slovan Bratislava before that. They've beaten other teams higher seeded and more fancied than them. They played their formations very well. They played very committedly. A team that cost about £300,000 to put together. They bought one player for €250,000, one for €100,000. The rest of them were all players through their academy, or free transfers, and their manager managed to get them playing well. Looks like we're starting the draw anyway. However, I am hopeful if Celtic get their act together, get motivated, they're going to have a good season in Scotland and a good Europa League draw, a good Europa League campaign as well. So something's happening with the screen. Got lots of flashing lights and symbols. Looks like the draw is being done automatically by the computer. I guess we now get a reveal of who Celtic are going to get as all the various different pots get divvied out. So hopefully they're going to go straight into telling us who's got who and who all the lists are. But in essence, 2 from pot 1, 2 from pot 2, 2 from pot 3, 2 from pot 4, 4 games at home, 4 games away, and which is what we're looking for. Hopefully, Celtic's name and number comes up nice and soon, and we can all be put out our misery. Oh, so Jurgen Klinsmann's pressing some button. So I guess the one before. I've had to turn the sound down, obviously, because can't really do a live stream if you got background TV noise, because you then get a lot of feedback and stuff. So I am guessing a wee bit as to what's happening anyway. So looks like Jurgen Klinsmann's now pressed the button, and this is going to tell us who. It's got all the pot A people. So Celtic will have Roma away from home. So we know one of our opponents. Nice place to go to, Rome, but not massively confident Celtic can go there and win. Maybe we can do another Atalanta and go there and draw. Looks like Rangers also have the same trip to Rome as well. So we know one of our opponents. Probably one of the strongest teams from pot 1 that we've got. So we're not getting Porto. So we do know that one of our pot 1 people is Roma. Not sure I prefer this way of doing it, doing the draw, but it's what they've chosen to do. So this is our big rivals draw. They're going to have a reunion with Gustav Lagerbielke, a reunion with our ex-striker as well. Although the way they're playing, goodness knows what could happen, because they got absolutely gubbed, obviously, by Bruges a couple of days ago. All right, so we've got a reunion with Feyenoord at home, which obviously we can be confident about that, because last time around we beat them at Celtic Park 2-1, dramatic late goal by the now departed Gustav Lagerbielke. So I think certainly if Celtic were playing at their best, playing at their potential, they can certainly beat Feyenoord at Celtic Park, especially because Feyenoord have lost 1 or 2 of their players. So hopefully at the end of all this, they'll do a list of what teams each team's actually drawn, because at the moment we only really know who our pot 1 teams are, which are Feyenoord, which wasn't too bad, and Roma, which maybe was that bit worse. So I think just one more team, which is Aston Villa from pot 1, to get their list of teams. I wonder whether they'll do the same thing for all the teams from pot 2, which includes Celtic, and then we'll see who we're actually going to get other than Feyenoord and Roma. Right, so looks like this is what they'll do for pot 2, pot 3, pot 4, and so very, very soon we'll know who we're all going to get, apart from Feyenoord and Roma, who we definitely know we're getting. So Celtic is going to be the 8th of the 9. I guess for the next display thing. So Celtic have got Roma, Feyenoord, Braga, Cervena Zvezda, who is Red Star Belgrade, Sturm Graz, Midtjylland, Utrecht, and Bologna. So don't know what people think about Roma, Feyenoord, Braga. Of course, that means we'll be going up against potentially Gustav Lagerbielke if they pick him. Red Star Belgrade, Sturm Graz, Midtjylland, Utrecht, Bologna. I think it's probably one of these draws where could have been better, could have been worse. I think we've got a beatable team from Pot A. We've got 2 potential games that we can win from Pot 2. I think the same from Pot 3. Utrecht, probably in the greater scheme of things, much the same level as Celtic. And then Bologna, probably one would expect them to be more of the favourites regarding that. So I don't know what other people's thoughts are regarding the draw. For me, could have been better, could have been worse. And if the real Celtic turns up, the kind of Celtic that did so well against Slovan Bratislava, Red Bull Leipzig, the away draw in Atalanta, will skirt over the Borussia Dortmund game, and the team that gave Bayern Munich a very tough 2-legged tie. If that team turns up, Celtic have every chance of getting through this group stage into the knockout stage. And it could be another 2003. 2003, Celtic got knocked out in August in the qualifiers. That was a team that included Celtic greats like Larsson, Sutton, Hartson, Lennon, Lambert, Petrov, many others. That Celtic team got knocked out in the qualifiers as well. That was under Martin O'Neill. But we got right through to the UEFA Cup final, losing 3-2 to Jose Mourinho's Porto, the same Jose Mourinho Porto that went on to win the European Cup the next season. And so good. Hello to you, Paul Maguire, as well, one of the regular viewer, subscriber, commentators as well. Paul's got lots of very interesting, very good ideas, really good insight in his comments as well. And so interesting draw. Not sure what the people are saying to each other at the moment. Maybe they're thanking Jurgen Klinsmann for pressing the buttons so many times and being as patient as he was. Looks like it may well be finished. So what I think then now happens is they then put all those fixtures into the computer, work out what order those 8 games are going to be. All going to be on Thursdays, and so in essence what they'll have to do is have Rangers and Celtic playing opposite home and aways, so that neither side's playing at the home at the same time. And then we'll find out who we're getting first. The first fixture is right towards the end of September. I think it's the last full Thursday in September. And from last year's Champions League draw, they released all the fixtures and what orders and dates for each of these the games. They released it on the Saturday morning, so we'll find out prior to the Rangers game on Sunday. Just for those who are still watching, what are your own thoughts regarding a score prediction for the game against Rangers on Sunday? They have had an even worse start to the season than us. They've obviously not yet won in Scotland in any of the league games. They had pretty good early qualifying campaign, but then they got absolutely thumped by Bruges, a team, of course, we drew 1-1 with last season, so kind of shows what level Bruges are at, what level we were at last season. The side that Celtic currently have isn't that different from the side that played most of the Champions League last season. Adim Ida, if all the stories are true, is on his way away. Well, I'm sure we will have another new striker in to replace him very soon. Nicholas Kuhn, probably the biggest gap between last season and this season, although having said that, Nicholas Kuhn's form in the second half of the season wasn't that great for Celtic. Pretty much after the Bayern Munich game, every game or two he would go completely missing. And certainly Nicholas Kuhn's problem in all his previous teams had always been keeping himself injury-free and keeping up his fitness and energy levels and his consistency. It'll be interesting to see how Nicholas Kuhn does playing for Como in Italy, whether he has a similar in-and-out sort of form or whether he sets the metaphorical heather on fire by playing really well all season. Okay, it's fine. Interesting comment from St Mary's Parish, Coatbridge, another of the long-standing viewers, subscribers, daily commenter. Lots of great ideas, lots of great theories, lots of great opinions. Opinions aren't always the same as mine, which is the great fun of being a Celtic supporter or a football fan. I honestly think that a good European campaign is important for Celtic psychologically. I think it's a potential draw for some players who are playing at the moment for clubs who failed to get through any of the qualifying events. That's the theory with Kasper Dolberg, the Danish striker playing for Anderlecht. They got knocked out of the They got knocked out of the Conference League qualifiers, and that's why Anderlecht apparently are happy to sell Dolberg. I wonder whether there was something in Dolberg's contract with Anderlecht, or whether there was some kind of gentleman's agreement. If we don't qualify for Europe, we'll sell you, because they certainly have dropped their asking price, which was apparently £10 million about a month ago, to 7 or 8 million now. Never really believe a lot of these stories, but the several news sites and Celtic fan sites and so on were saying that Celtic and Anderlecht are in deep in negotiations, and that Celtic are happy to pay the price that Anderlecht want. That's been said quite a few times. I fully hear everyone's frustrations that we've been a bit slow, more than a bit slow bringing in players. I think at the moment, when you've got clubs and players whose contracts have got a couple of years still to go or more, the selling club has all the power. The player who's being sold has all the power to turn down bids. There were several sites, including a couple who were quoting British and European football agents who were saying that their players were waiting to see who got into the Champions League, who got into the Europa League, before deciding whether they were going to leave the clubs they were playing for currently to come to another club. And reportedly, there were a couple of players that Celtic were in the market for, and the players and the clubs were waiting to see whether they qualified for Europe group stage, or whether the club that wanted to buy them was going to qualify for the Champions League or the Europa League, etc. So, theory is that Kasper Dolberg is now available at a slightly lower price, because Anderlecht are happy to sell him, because they are not in any form of European competition this season. So, St Mary's Parish Co-Bribes predicting 1-0. I still haven't quite thought myself what score I'm going to predict. I certainly think Celtic are going to win the game against Rangers. They've looked awful this season. They've also lost Igamani, their striker. They've lost a few other players. The stories are that Nico Raskin, their Belgian player, is away as well. So I'm certainly happy to predict a Celtic win in the weekend. I think I might go for 2-0, but we'll see how the next day or two. Yeah, Anthony Stevenson, I fully agree that I do actually wonder whether the best thing for Celtic actually is for Brendan Rodgers to move on. I think at the moment, the fact that he is stalling on signing a new contract, several sources were saying that during the summer, Dermot Desmond, Lawwell, Nicholson had a long meeting with Brendan Rodgers when he was in his home in Spain. Further meetings when Rodgers came across from Spain back to Scotland for the start of pre-season. The stories are that Rodgers was offered a 2-3 year extension to his contract at more than he was already on, which is already £3 million a year, which is a lot of money for a manager. And he stalled on it, and something that I've said quite often, and opinion often agreed with by other people, that I honestly never thought that Rodgers was going to stay past the end of season 3. I was saying to another person who comments on a regular basis, Michael McCafferty, yesterday, that Rodgers in season 4, if he stays at any club long enough to be at season 4, always gets sacked. Liverpool, he was sacked in season 4 around about October. In Leicester, he joined Leicester, obviously, February, March. managed them to the end of the season. They did 3 full seasons with Leicester, and in season 4 got sacked when they were just above the relegation zone. So clearly, Brendan Rodgers doesn't do very well at clubs once it gets past season 3, and I think it's no coincidence. Also, next summer is the World Cup. What tends to happen is a lot of teams, international teams, their managers leave at the end of the World Cup, either voluntarily to go back to club football or just retire. Some leave because they're sacked. And so one theory with Brendan Rodgers is he's very keen to try international management. And of course, there will be quite a number of international jobs available. And there also will be quite a number of jobs in England. At the moment, as I was saying a wee bit earlier on, Nottingham Forest, rumoured to be sacking their manager very soon due to falling out with the chairman. West Ham, another team who are rumoured to be looking to sack their manager if their form and results don't pick up. I can certainly see Brendan Rodgers jumping ship at the first opportunity if either of those two come calling. He has promised that he wouldn't leave until the end of season 3 at the very earliest, and that he's going to be looking at new contract negotiations in the new year. But first time around, I didn't really trust Brendan Rodgers, and it proved to be true when he ditched us for Leicester in February. And I can see the same thing happening again. Yep. So. Yep. So I fully agree. St Mary's Parish, Coatbridge. I think we added Mikkel Onge Balakwisha last night. The stories are that Sarachi, the Uruguayan left back, is going to be in the building today to sign his contract. So that should get announced this evening or Saturday morning. It appears on the face of it that Ida's leaving and Kasper Dolberg is being lined up to come in. Hopefully Celtic do get that over the line. It's not thought that a Jacob Broom deal is likely to go ahead now. Go Ahead Eagles, I think, have the shut up shop and are keeping their squad. There's this interesting player called Sebastian Tunecti from Hammarby, apparently very, very talented young Swedish/Tunisian winger. Believe that Celtic have bid around about 3 million or so for him. The asking price is thought to be 5 million. Whether Celtic and Hammarby agree to split the difference and go for 4, I don't know. Maybe Celtic will go to 5. I think certainly with us selling Ida and having in essence Kenny, Osmond and Yamada as our 3 strikers at the moment, I think we do now definitely need to get another striker in, if not 2. There is the option of playing Benjamin Negrin as a centre forward striker. He primarily played for all his previous clubs as a right winger, sometimes a left winger, sometimes an attacking midfielder, very often as a centre forward striker. Playing at centre midfield is actually something he's not done terribly often. But Rodgers seems dead set on always playing him as a centre midfielder. My feeling with Kieran, I think Kieran Tierney is going to be a really good player for us. I think his fitness is going to slowly get better and better and better. I think they're just trying to manage his fitness and manage his game time. He's kind of played a wee bit more minutes and a wee bit more minutes each game. He played till about the 75th minute against Kirat Almaty. He's been generally playing in all of their games about 60 minutes and then getting substituted off. having Sirachi on the bench, assuming that loan deal does go through in the next 24 hours or so, that's also going to be a big bonus. I think actually Liam Scales has done pretty fine at left back, standing in for Kieran Tierney. One of the snags at the moment, of course, is Austin Trusty is out for an indefinite time with that foot problem, which is going to mean them playing either Dane Murray or Jemai Simpson-Puzzi if Trusty is going to be out for any length of time with his foot problem. So I do think getting in a new left back is a good move. Actually quite disappointed for Hayato Inamura being sent out on loan. I thought he's actually been surprisingly good, given his relative inexperience. Has really had two halves of a season playing in Japanese football. He did play a lot of football at a good competitive level in Japan at university. System in Japan is quite different from system with soccer football in Scotland. Rio Hitati was another player who actually played a lot of university football before turning professional. However, Hayato Inamura, two half seasons in the J League. He is 23 years old, so he is actually a relatively older player for a player with only two halves of a full season. I was actually impressed with him in pre-season. I thought he very good ability to pass the ball, very forward-moving, forward-thinking, which is a big contrast to quite a few of our centre-backs. And I thought he actually could have learned how to play the Greg Taylor role of being an inverted fullback. However, Rodgers doesn't seem to rate him. I thought his debut against Livingston was good. He defended basically fine against Livingston, didn't get out-muscled, out-paced. He's actually about the same height as Cameron Carter-Vickers, and I always think it's quite strange when people say that Hayato Inamura is too small to be a centre-back when he's only about an inch or half an inch shorter than Cameron Carter-Vickers. So I'm a bit disappointed that Hayato Inamura is being farmed out on loan. Whoever he goes to, he's not going to be playing the way the Celtic play. He's going to be playing a different role. I also do wonder whether Hayato Inamura could have been a player Celtic could have used a bit like a Jeffrey Schlupp, a bit of a versatile player, left back, occasional left centre back in a back three, moving into an inverted fullback or even a defensive midfielder role. His standard of passing, I thought Hayato Inamura was better than many players at Celtic, which is also why I'm actually quite confident that Dane Murray could turn into being a very good player for Celtic, because he's big at 6'4", he's a strong player, he's got a lot of pace for a player of that height, and his passing is also considerably better than Carter-Vickers and considerably better than Liam Scales. And I think that was massively shown on Tuesday and the previous Wednesday in our centre backs. Their standard of passing forwards wasn't good enough. One of the problems, as I've said a few times on videos and in comments and stuff, is the fact that we don't really get very much in the way of feedback and information actually from the board members and the financial people and the recruitment people. Everything's kind of kept secret as to what's happening and not happening behind the scenes. So we get little rumours here and there. Lots of journalists and Celtic fan sites and YouTube sites and stuff seem to claim they've got inside knowledge. I think about 90% of the stories I read on a daily basis, I think most of them are just clickbait. They're to get people to click on their websites, on their newspaper, online sites, etc. And I think a lot of stories actually get planted by agents and by clubs to try and drum up interest in players. And so it's very difficult to know what's going on behind the scenes at Celtic, because they don't tell us what's going on behind the scenes at Celtic. I think if possibly Nicholson or Paul Tidsdale, for example, were interviewed on Celtic TV or interviewed on BBC or Sky Sports or whatever, and say, this is what's happening, this is what's happening. We did put in a bid of £10 million for player A, but the club said they weren't going to sell him at any cost. Or we put in a bid of £8 million, and the player said he'd happily come to Celtic. However, he would only come to Celtic if they qualify for the Champions League, and he wasn't going to sign until after Celtic were in the Champions League. So I don't quite know what's going on behind the scenes. Whether it's Celtic saving money, whether it was Celtic were hedging their bets, what is certain is that Celtic have lots of money in the bank. They have got the scope now to give Dyson Maida a really big contract, keep him at Celtic. Similarly, big contracts to keep players like Hatate at the club. Last season, we gave Alza Johnson, another player, a big contract upgrade. I think actually missing Alza Johnson on Tuesday was quite a bad miss for Celtic. I think he's probably the one player in Celtic's squad who probably would have gone round getting everybody G'd up and fired up at 45 minutes, 90 minutes, 105 minutes, 120 minutes. Didn't really get the feeling that Rodgers, his coaching staff, or Callum McGregor, or Carter Vickers, etc., nobody seemed to be going round getting people G'd up. Two players who do seem to be that sort of players in the squad, Alza Johnson and Austin Trusty, and both of them, of course, were out injured on Tuesday. And I would guess that neither Trusty or Johnson would have been allowed to fly medically, because a 7.5-hour flight, when you've got leg, foot problems and immobility and all these kind of things, does actually put you quite high risk of blood clots and stuff. So I do wonder whether medically those two weren't fit to fly. Yeah, I do agree. Clashman, I agree 100%. Before even Inamura had touched the ball for Celtic, Roger was saying that he's not very good, and we're going to look at him and then send him out on loan. I thought in the pre-season he played well. He particularly is good going forward. He's got a good ability to cross the ball, pass the ball into the box. I thought, as I said, he had a good game, not a great game, but a good game against Livingston. He seems to be a player who learns very quickly. Yep. So, Clashman Numpty, again, been with me from the start. Our opinions very often are the same. Our opinions sometimes aren't the same, but I could 100% agree with you that Inamura would develop far better at Celtic than he would be if he's going to go away play for Falkirk or Livingston or St Mirren or Blackburn Rovers or whomever. Certainly, the indications that Miovski is lined up to sign for Rangers at a cut price fee, about 2.6 million, rising to 4.2 million. Miovski certainly seems to be a player that divides opinion. He had a good time for Aberdeen a couple of seasons ago. He's had a pretty miserable time in Girona. So it does make you think maybe he's not quite able to step up to the highest level. There was talk when Miovski went from Aberdeen to Girona in Spain that Miovski had said that he wouldn't join Celtic, full stop. I don't know quite why that was the story, but there were certainly a few different Celtic sites and football journalists sites who were saying that Miovski had said flatly he would never join Celtic. So I don't know whether it's one of these things where there are other factors that stop him joining Celtic. But I certainly read that. Not this summer, but previous summer when Miovski was up for sale from Aberdeen, that Miovski wouldn't come to Celtic in a million years. Not sure how Miovski will do coming back to Scottish football if that deal does go through. The stories are that Miovski might well be signed by Rangers in time for the game on Sunday. Be surprised if he did get a start for Celtic start for Rangers on Sunday. The other thing, if Miovski was willing to come to Celtic, maybe Celtic can do a Fabio Silva style deal, and because up until about 12 noon that day, Fabio Silva supposedly was coming to Celtic, and then Rangers came in for him, and Fabio Silva chose to go to Rangers instead. Not that that worked out terribly well for Rangers either. So maybe Celtic, now that they know how much Girona want for Miovski, which has come down quite considerably as well, because they were talking about 6 million or something like that just a few weeks ago. That seems to have dropped to 2.6, upgraded to 4.2 with clauses and bits and bobs. Again, Clashman Numpty, again, 100% agree with you. It's almost as if that we've got the same mind half the time. I think Colby Donovan would be a great player to start against Rangers on Saturday. He's shown in the pre-season games. He showed actually in the game against Kira Almaty. I thought when he came on and when Dane Murray came on, I thought they were a breath of fresh air. Colby Donovan made so much progress down the right wing that Anthony Ralston wasn't doing. And he was much more reminiscent of how Alistair Johnson plays the right back role than the way that Anthony Ralston plays the right back role. Although Anthony Ralston can get forward, it's against Kirat Almaty, he seemed to be either told by Rodgers to stick back, or he didn't have the energy to get up and down the wing. I don't see Rodgers, unfortunately, throwing Colby Donovan into the Rangers game at Ibrox on Sunday. I think he's too much of a stubborn person. He doesn't take risks. I think he'll think putting in a young player as being a risk. He did throw Kieran Tierney into the team first time around. That worked out brilliantly. Yep. If there's one set of fans in general who are less happy than Celtic fans at the moment, I think that would be Rangers fans. Apparently, the fans of Fenerbahce in Turkey are also livid as well. They thought they were all lined up to be in the Champions League, and they've dropped out of that into the Europa League like us. And apparently their fans are absolutely fuming as well. And like I read this morning, they've sacked their manager. I haven't got a list of who Utrecht are going to face. Celtic are playing Utrecht in one of Celtic's 8 games. I didn't jot down to say who Utrecht's other 7 opponents are going to be. UEFA, I'm sure the full groups and stuff will be up on the UEFA site, and the full fixtures usually get released the following day. So certainly Celtic will be playing Utrecht later in the season. And hopefully, if Celtic get their scoring boots on and get their form back, they'll have a good result against Utrecht. It's a bit disappointing actually, because I thought the game against Falkirk and the game against Livingston, Celtic were looking more back to their best. There were good parts in the game against Aberdeen. St Mirren game was a bit of a slow start, but we won that in the end, and one can take some encouragement from the fact that we've managed to beat St Mirren, not playing at our best, beat Aberdeen, not playing at our best, beat Falkirk, not playing at our absolute best, and then we beat Livingston at the weekend, not playing at our absolute best, but I thought we were getting better and better. I was hoping that the game against Kirat Almaty at Celtic Park was going to be a one-off blip, but it clearly wasn't a one-off blip, because we were worse, if that was possible, in the game against against Kirat Almaty in Kazakhstan. They looked even more scared, nervous, tense, no confidence on Tuesday than they had done the previous Wednesday. And for me, that's 95% of that comes down to Rodgers, the coaching staff, the preparation, the tactics, and some of it comes down to, in terms of those two performances, comes down to the players. Because after all, 9 of the 11 players who started for Celtic on Tuesday are current internationals, or at least very, very recent internationals. We brought on 2 current or very recent internationals. We had some talented teenagers on the bench to bring on, under 21, under 19, under 17 Scotland players like Donovan and Murray. So we had lots and lots of quality. Difficult to know if we'd had Mikel Ange Balikwisha a month earlier, had we had Sirachi a month earlier. Of all the transfer dealings, Mikel Ange Balikwisha probably is the most frustrating one, because it appeared in June, July, Antwerp wanted about 4.5 to 5 million, which is what we've ended up paying them in the last week of the transfer window. So that's probably the most frustrating one of all of them, is that we had the price they asked for is the price that we've ended up paying. I fully agree. I think personally, bringing in players like Donovan and Dane Murray is a very positive thing. I think Dane Murray could actually turn out to be a very, very good centre back for Celtic. I'm very impressed with his height, very impressed with his speed. He's learning very quickly how to defend better and better. I think if he formed a partnership with someone like Cameron Carter-Vickers, he could be a very, very good centre-back, and particularly because his passing is 100% better than Liam Scales, 100% better than Cameron Carter-Vickers. Colby Donovan, I think he is probably, for me, the second best right back at Celtic, the best right back that's fit at the moment at Celtic. I think when Alistair Johnston comes back, he would automatically go in to be the number 1, but I think Donovan in the long term is a far better bet than Anthony Ralston. I think Ralston's a fine squad player, but I don't think he's good enough to start for Celtic in the Champions League. I think Ralston and Donovan both are good enough to start for Celtic in the Europa League. We'll certainly find that out over the months of September through to January. Hibs are very disappointing. They look really, really good. They've got some good players, Boyle and Bowie up front. They've got a couple of new young players, one of whom looked really impressive last night from what I've heard and read. It's perfectly possible that if Hibs can keep this bunch of players together, keep them fit, that they could actually be the team that challenges Celtic more than our big rivals from across the city. They do appear to have thank you, St Mary's Parish Coatbridge. My opinions are not the same as many other Celtic fans. I tend to see everything as I tend to be very optimistic about everything. In real life, I'm not the most optimistic person, a bit of a pessimistic person, a bit of a realist. But in Celtic terms, I am very much a 100% optimist, trying to always find the bright side of things, the positive side of things. But I fully appreciate that other fans have different opinions, and I'm very, very happy to share other opinions. And many of the other opinions are often proven right, and I'm often proven wrong. But it's good fun sharing opinions. It's good fun having a platform for saying what I want to say, and it's good where people agree with me, and it's good when people debate with me. And I certainly hope that this weekend is going to be good for everybody in terms of their normal living life, social life, and hopefully a nice confidence boosting, morale boosting win on Sunday against our big rivals from across the city. And so I too also hope that every Celtic fan has a great weekend in all ways. But certainly coming back to what Clashman Numpty was saying, I do think it's a good opportunity for Celtic to actually bring through players like Donovan, Murray, Turley. I think it's also a good chance to play Osmond and Kenny often as well. I think giving them time off the bench on a regular basis, giving them starts in some games, I think that's really important. I think Osmond has got tremendous pace. His scoring performances in effect the reserve league for the Premier League were very impressive last season with Fulham. I think he is a player with tons and tons of potential. I think a player who has good finishing skills and lots of pace. And I think that actually lots of pace is very important, particularly with the way that Celtic often play. Not saying that either he or Yamada or are quite Kyogo yet, but at times Kyogo wasn't Kyogo either, because Kyogo's form for Celtic last season was a bit in and out, didn't score really the number of goals that he should have done last season, and his actual goals per minute played was actually really rather disappointing last season. Adam Ida's goals per minute was far better than Kyogo's both last season and the season before. So I think we'll just start to wind things down. So Celtic, from my notes, have got as our 8 opponents Roma and Feyenoord, Braga, Red Star Belgrade, Midtjylland of Denmark, Sturm Graz of Austria, Bologna of Italy, and Utrecht. I think it's a bunch of 8 teams that Celtic can give most of them, or at least give most of them or all of them a good game. I think it's a group of players where Celtic can certainly get more than enough points to get through to the knockout phase. I think it's actually a very interesting mix of teams in the 36 who are in the Europa League this season. One of the other questions is whether some of the bigger teams from France, Italy, Germany, Spain, etc., whether they'll commit their best players to all the Europa League games, even though the Champions League automatic qualifier is there at the end of the season for whoever wins the Europa League, as is the case for Tottenham Hotspur this year. Tottenham Hotspur, who came one position above the relegation zone, get straight into the Champions League. Lots of champions of leagues all around Europe, like Celtic, like Red Star Belgrade, like Fenerbahce, many others. They have to go through lots and lots of qualifying and end up dropped into Europa League. So I'm not sure the Champions League qualifying system is quite as fair as it should be. All for big countries having more players and more teams in the league, but I do think it's a bit ridiculous that England gets 6 teams automatically straight through to the group stages, whilst countries like Scotland and the Eastern European countries have to go through 1, 2, 3, 4 rounds of qualifying to get their teams into a position to qualify. Maybe the 5th and 6th teams in England's bunch should have been put into one of the pathways because I think one of the disadvantages that Celtic have is the fact that many of the teams that we go up against in the qualifier rounds are often midway through their leagues. Kairat Almaty are about 2/3 of their way through their leagues. And so clearly we're much more match fit, match ready than Celtic. Pre-season friendlies are all well and good, but in essence we'd had about 3 or 4 proper games leading into the Kairat Almaty game, and they'd had 6 qualifiers in Europe against top level teams, plus about 30 games in their own domestic league. That's right. Yes, so thank you very much, Clashman Numpty. Clashman Numpty being one of the viewer, subscriber, contributors right from the start, two and a bit years ago, and certainly our big rivals across the road, we could certainly call them the 49ers, because it's the people, the financial people behind the 49ers who own them now. They appear to be using a similar financial model to the one that Celtic are using at the moment, in that they're looking to bring through players, sell the best players, and restart again. And certainly, from what I've read, our big rivals were quite close to going bankrupt the second time, until they got bailed out by the 49ers financial group. Interestingly, there doesn't seem to be any real link-ups between the Leeds people and the Rangers people, because those two are owned by the same group. So I think we've been going for now 77 minutes, so I think we shall call it a day. Thank you for all those who've been viewing from the start, all those who've dipped in and out, all those who've made comments. My plan, now that we seem to have got the IT gremlins sorted out, is to have another few more weekly live streams to round things up on Thursdays, probably when Celtic start playing on Thursday evenings with these Europa League fixtures in the last week of September. We'll start to maybe have to use a different day. So I'll maybe pop a thing on the channel nearer the time just to decide what day would be a better day, be it a Tuesday, let's say, or we'll see what turns out to be a better day. But we'll keep going on Thursday evenings, live streams at 9 o'clock for those who enjoy doing the live streams. So thank you for everyone who's been watching. Thank you for all your participation. Going to be doing a video either tonight or tomorrow previewing the Rangers game at the weekend, the game I think we're going to win, and hopefully get 2 or 3 more players at least in over the next 3 or 4 days before the window shuts on Monday evening at 7 p.m. And so until the next live stream and the next video, goodbye and hail, hail.